thanks for coming.
Sorry, mate. That's the end of it.
That's it. Yeah, let's cut there. So just obviously we've been mates for how many years now?
Too long, mate. I think it's about 2014, 15. I'd say.
Was it something like that?
I met you at. I actually remember when I met
Drayton
you.
Manor.
Yeah. It was like a conference room, wasn't it? And I was like, who's this dickhead? Can I swear?
Well, you have, so demonetised.
Yeah.
Not that I've got that far yet, but it was when it was Drayton Manor. Yeah, we were doing like a corporate thing, and I felt really bad for the girl who was editing it because I'm sure she was there till like 4 a.m.
Yeah, was it? Oh yeah, I can't remember.
Nina.
Yeah.
I'm not sure her last name. Sorry, Nina.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it was then, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I do remember that. Yeah, I think it's about 2015. I'd say.
Yeah. So hopefully. So what have you? So I guess the whole idea of this podcast, I'm going to keep calling it anyway because it's just what comes to my head.
Yeah.
Was just a chat to like obviously people in the Midlands. Obviously we know like quite a group of a few people who are into the same thing. So what you been up to the last few years and no?
Oh man, it's hard to sum up in the last few years, isn't it? For people who obviously most of you don't know me, I'm a writer director, but I'm kind of like a jack of all trades, I suppose, which is frowned upon. But I shoot, edit, but my passion is directing and writing. So to sum up the last few years, I've been kind of just working on corporate shoots, to pay the bills, but then I've been creating short films, music videos, documentaries here and there to fuel the hunger, the creative hunger, and and obviously you've been involved in a couple of them, I think, and a few other people. But like, I love narrative stuff, narrative films. So obviously they're all self-funded. There's no funding schemes involved. So I'd say the last few years has been a steady build-up from, because I basically come from music videos more than anything. Yeah. So I've done probably 15, 16 music videos over the years. And then I'd say 90% of the band I've done music videos for have split up since. Isn't
that just the way we band?
Yeah.
I think it isn't.
Yeah, it's true. And then I kind of started doing documentary profiles on like artists and stuff, and then I've always wanted to do just storytelling, like narrative film. Yeah. I mean, features is the goal, but so I've been doing short films. So it's all been leading up to short films, and even in fact the music videos I did do have never been bands playing. Like it's always been a story. So I've kind of technically been doing narrative films in the music videos because they are essentially short films. But it was kind of a compromise. You have their track. You have to make your story work for the track, or but now it's mainly just short films. Now I've kind of veered away from music videos and documentaries. It's more just short films, and obviously there's no money in short films really, but it's not really the aim. It's more of the long playing the long game really with it, and which is to eventually move into feature films.
So like obviously we've worked together a couple of times. And I know you've got like a specific style, but like, what are your like inspirations behind your films, like in your words? Because you're well into like the stuff that the type of style it is. You're like well into, aren't you? Like generally, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's I always find it hard to answer it because like there's so much that factors into like an inspiration for something, and like because I come from, again, the music videos were like. A lot of them were dark comedy, actually, thinking about it. And then I've done a few kind of like serious stuff. And then I've kind of moved back into dark comedy again now with the short films. And I think when I was growing up, I was fortunate enough to have parents who were really like just cool with me and my brother watching like horror films. I mean, one of our first films, back when Woolworths was still open. And my mum used to like take me and my brother to Woolworths, and every now and then she'd say, this is showing my age now as well, like you can pick a VHS and that's your treat. You can pick a film and that's it then, but you've both got to agree on the film because you're only having one. Yeah. And then me and my brother like saw Candyman, the horror film, and we was like, we want that. And my mum was like, if I buy that, it's going to terrify you, and I'm going to have to take it back. And we were just like begging, like, no, we want Candyman. And then she was like, okay, I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to have to take it back. It scares you. And then we were like, no, please. And then she bought us Candyman. And bear in mind, man, I was like about 10 years old. My brother was a little bit older, so he was probably about 12. And we watched these films in bed to go to sleep, and so I think we put Candyman on to go to sleep too. And it was just like, it did terrify me, to be fair, like, because I think to this day, Candyman's the only horror film that's really like chilled me. Like, I'm pretty good with horror films, but that one was quite creepy. But yeah, so I was hooked on horror films. Me and my brother made films as kids. Like, it's kind of a cliche story, but you know, we had the family camcorder. We'd get our schoolmates around, make zombie films, make, you know, all kinds of rip-offs of like famous horror films. Yeah. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we made our own version of that, you know, and loads of zombie films.
And what gear did you use like back in them days? What were you using as kids?
I couldn't even tell you. It was like I think they called it Super 8, but it wasn't Super 8 film. It wasn't like film, it was digital.
High 8.
High 8, yeah. High 8, yeah.
Was there analog 8 and then there was high 8, I think, which was
there
the
was,
digital
version. You had like flat cassettes to begin with, because like when we started, we had these like slim cassettes, and then as we got a little bit older, and we had the camcorder we had was a JVC, and it was like a big fat tape like that. And then you buy this VHS that was a converter, and you put the JVC cassette inside the VHS tape, and then you put that in your VHS player so you could watch what you've done.
Was it VHS-C then? It must have been VHS-C.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I think high 8 is a totally different format. So if you had a tape, it'd probably have to.
So because the high 8 before we had to put that in the camcorder itself and then connect it with the cables. But then we bought a new camcorder, which was the one my parents did, the JVC one, which was like a. You know, but that was like the holiday camcorder that, you know, the whole family would just use, but we just kind of, me and my brother hijacked it for short films.
I remember my dad used to have like a couple of camcorders as well, and I've got footage of me on my 3rd birthday, and it was weird, like the sensors that they must have had back then, like used to have burning, so if you filmed a candle, it'd like draw like trails along the screen, and it'd stay for ages.
I remember seeing that on Only Fools and Horses. There's some episodes when they pan across, because Only Fools and Horses, when they do exteriors, they shoot on film, but then in all the interior stuff was these those kind of cameras, and then you see on pans, you'd see the light just kind of trail across.
And then it'd stay for ages, and then it'd eventually just fade away. But it had a massive tape deck with it as well, like one of my dad's ones, and then it had a cable, so you'd have to press record on it.
Has he still got it?
I don't know, you know. Because like when they when we moved house and everything, like all the stuff just got broken up into one went to my dad's place and went to my mum's. So I don't know what he's still got, but
be good to get that back out.
I think it's like a Ferguson or something. Like I've got in my head it was a Ferguson, but you like hit the thing on the recorder. It was massive, like heavy thing. And then he moved up to like a Panasonic handheld, I think. Yeah. VHS-C as well.
Yeah, I mean it seems quite popular now that a lot of people are actually just taking these cameras and they're making stuff, you know, with these VHS and, you know, cameras, because it's kind of become fashionable again, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure I saw something online where like a few of the shots are done with like an old. They're just chucking a few. Yeah. They must have like bought an old camcorder off.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's a new show, The Virtues, with it's directed by Shane Meadows. And they do all the flashbacks on VHS, basically. And they're literally, I think not long before the shoot, they bought a camcorder off eBay and just shot it on that, basically.
Slight sidetrack, because I will come back to the films. Yeah. Here's a question for you, though. You know, like when you watch old stuff, it feels nostalgic because it looks a little bit shit. Like now everything's so good. Will it still feel as nostalgic?
I don't know really. Actually, it's hard to answer. But I feel like, for me, because I watch a lot of older films than I do. Yeah. I watch more old films than I do newer films. Cause I'm still discovering a lot of stuff as well. There's so much cinema out there, but like, there's a magic in the older stuff, I think, as well. Because like, obviously, it's primarily shot on film, but the rough around the edges look as well, and the film stock look as well has a magic to it, and I feel like you kind of lose that with digital. I think, well, it's hard. Well, not entirely, but there's a magic of the old cinema, because it's just some of the film stock's quite rugged as well, and it depends on the film. But
films. You probably don't notice so much with film, do you? Because it scans quite well, doesn't it? Film holds up quite well.
Yeah.
But I was thinking more of like, you know, going from the lower end stuff and like family photos even. You know, like when you look at like an old family photo, it's got that like certain colour about it. Or it's got like a VHS, for instance, is like looks
VHS
a bit,
definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean? It instantly just throws you back to your childhood. Whereas like now, like will my kids look back at this footage because it's so crystal clear?
Yeah.
It just feels like.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think like, it's a good point. I think now we've reached a level where. Because, you know, you got 4K, 8K, and I think it becomes kind of irrelevant now. It's just like, well, you can only go, the human eye can only take in so much, and I feel like there's HDR and stuff coming that will, you know, change it a little bit.
I think that's going to be the thing, isn't it?
But yeah, with photos and stuff, I just think, I don't know, it's hard. You don't know what tech's going to come out, but I find it hard to imagine that you can get better, you know, than what in terms of quality, but.
So I only got my like first 4K TV just before Christmas. Yeah. And like honestly, unless you really look for it, you can't tell the difference between 4K and HD unless you go really close to it. Yeah. And see. Yeah. And it's a good TV, but you know, I think, you know, like other than like trying to reframe and all that sort of stuff, or maybe visual effects, it's good for having extra resolution.
That's the thing, because for me personally, is like what I do. I don't have any interest in resolutions, because I feel like. The only purpose it serves for me is what you pretty much said, is like if there's visual effects and color grading really, and just having more information in the image, and I guess the dynamic range and stuff, it depending on the camera and all that. But you know, resolution, I guess like I try and shoot most of the projects now in 4K just to future-proof stuff. Yeah. But it's not the be all and end all. Most of the time it goes out at 1080 online, or
it's funny as well, isn't it? Like how loads of like. The fashion is at the minute is to use all the old glass, which is like soft.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's like they're trying to soften it down anyway. So it's like you say, I guess it's just the size of.
But I think that's also a case of there's so many people now making films. That's just because everyone's got access to it, which is great. But at the same time, it raises the bar now, and you have to think outside the box. And so everyone who's buying this glass that is super popular, people are trying to think, oh, what can I get that's going to just set me apart? And they start looking into start looking back and going for all these old, you know, like hit the Helios glass,
the Russian one.
That's it, and just all these interesting setups that will kind of set them apart a little bit visually, and you know, but
it's like all that old projection anamorphics and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, like,
using the projection lenses, and like you used to be able to get like, I don't know, 10 years ago you could pick them up for like nothing, like getting free.
They're really
people giving them away, and they're like 200, 300, 400.
I almost bought one actually on eBay. Like it's like $600-700, but it had a bit of mold in the inside of the. It's such a complex. I mean, my knowledge of camera setup and stuff, because I'm only go so far. I have only so much interest. I shouldn't say that as someone who does camera mopping, but I know enough to like do my job and like do a good job. But it only goes so far for me.
But I think there's something to be said in that though, that like some people are about the technical side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is good. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I am to an extent. However, like there's more to be said of being able to having the eye for shooting anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you can know all the technical stuff in the world, and sometimes it will help you out and get you out of situations, like potentially.
Yeah.
But that's not the most important thing, is it?
Well, it's the instinct. Really? I think there's an instinct to someone who, I think it's hard to tell someone like how to be creative and what looks good, and I think it's an instinct that that just doesn't look good. Sometimes you don't know why, but there's a shot, you look at it and go, it's just not working, and why is that? And I think a lot of it is down to an instinctive eye. But yeah, I don't know, man.
We went down the rabbit hole a bit there, but going back into your films, so like you're watching Candyman and stuff like that. So now, when did you start to bring the comedy element in?
I think like it's again that I think the comedy element was just a matter of, because me and my brother used to watch, while we were watching horror, we're also watching like Monty Python, and like religiously, you know, like Holy Grail and Life of Brian and stuff, and we're like watching that on repeat, and loads of other, like loads of British comedy and TV you know, shows and stuff, 40 Towers and, you know, all the Only Fools and Horses and all that. But I suppose it's just the love of those two things kind of naturally eventually came together. But I mean, whilst me and my brother were making horror films as kids, we were also making sketch shows. We did our own version of Monty Python, and we'd just do like all these stupid like characters and sketches with a few other mates as well from school. And like, I think it was just, a love of the two that naturally came together eventually, and then I think I've just got a dark sense of humour naturally. Like, I haven't forced anything. I didn't want to purposely make it dark comedy or anything like that, but I think my humour is just really a bit messed up sometimes, so like it naturally went that way in the films. And I think that's what interests me more than anything now, is dark comedy, like and just comedy, but comedy and horror, those two fields really. But yeah, I'm kind of terrible at answering your questions because I feel like I'm
that's good. I just wondered, like, it's like going from Candyman and then incorporating comedy into it was.
It's hard because
I was just trying to work out where that came from.
Yeah, because
like obviously we've got like quite a good relationship, and we're just always just ripping each other.
Yeah.
So like you know, like we like you have got that sort of sense of humour anyway.
Yeah.
So like I just wondered like where the fascination of that came to get it.
I think the difficult thing as well, it's like obviously no one's life is like a straight linear path, is it? There's like everyone's lives are multiple strands of different things going on and different interests and stuff. And for me, growing up, it was horror, comedy, and then, you know, life as well. And you know, your circumstances happen, and then it's how you deal with that circumstance. You know, do you laugh it off? It's just, I don't know. There's like a massive string of things that come together to kind of shape who you are as a filmmaker. And I think that's what I'm still figuring out, is what kind of filmmaker I am and like what is my style. Because a couple of people have said I've got a certain style, but I still don't see my style. Because I still feel like I'm trying to figure stuff out. And obviously before the films that, like, especially like the one you worked on, I hadn't really done like a dark comedy narrative film, you know, a standalone film that wasn't a music video. So those were like also an experiment to just kind of figure out, am I good at this? Can I do comedy? Because like comedy is so hard to do. Yeah. And you know, it's the script, it's timing, it's, you know, it's everything. And so yeah, I think I've gone off on a tangent again. But
no, it's good. so yeah, you were saying it was sort of your first short film you'd done with comedy, I guess, wasn't it? And I know you've done quite a few films in the series. Is it 5 or 4 you do?
There's 4 in total. Yeah, there was going to be 5, but like they'll never come out otherwise. Yeah, goddamn. I mean, so to give a bit of context to people who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm basically making this collection of short dark comedy films, and it comes from a frustration of not having really any short films that wasn't made at uni. And it was just a frustration of not having done anything. I think after I made that music video, that Kon-Tiki music video,
I was going to come on to that, but
yeah. Well, after that, I kind of like it was just kind of a year of like corporate work and just jobs, and I just hadn't made anything. I was like, this is ridiculous, and so I just said to myself, okay, you're going to make 5 short films and then put them out as a series. And then like it's just kind of like I haven't stressed too much about it being an anthology and a series. It's just but they're all dark comedies. They've all got like they all belong together, but they're not really like, there's not a bookended you know, crypt keeper going, oh, and then, you know, it's not like a big anthology show. But for me, it was just to kick myself up the arse to like get on with stuff and get it done, and not be too precious about it either, because like there's so many good short films and there's so much good competition out there, but like you know, some people have like 10 grand budgets for their short films and stuff, and you can drive yourself crazy thinking of those filmmakers and their budgets and all that kind of stuff and comparing yourself. But in the end, you've just got to get on with it. You just got to, if you've got 250 quid, fuck it, just go and make something. And maybe I think you have to calibrate your expectations or your kind of what you've got around you and be resourceful to kind of cater for that budget. But it's good to dream big as well at the same time. And I feel like I just didn't want to be a bitter filmmaker stuck at home being like, oh, if I had 10 grand, I'd do this and that. But it's like, well, you haven't got 10 grand to make a film, so what have you got? You got 250 quid to go and make a short film. And then we made The Front Door, and that was like 250 quid. So.
But I think, again, like you say, like budget obviously helps.
Yeah.
But I think you need to have a good eye for picking good talent as well. Like obviously me. No. But no, like the actors and stuff. Like I think you've got a good knack of like knowing when you've worked with someone who's good, like keeping a good relationship. Or like Brad in that film, for instance. Like he was like a really good character to pick just because of his accent, the way he looked,
the way he carried himself.
I think that like obviously, you know, like you say, it's not just about the money, it's about choosing the right people to bring in on the project.
Absolutely, man. It's so crucial to surround yourself with the right people on a project. And I think like, you know, the whole thing is a learning experience. I think each short film I've done, I've learned so much from it. But like from some of the short films, one of the key collaborators is a guy called Chris Butler, who obviously you know. But Chris Butler I met on a film I made at uni called Gardenia, which was a bit of a when our lecturers said you got to make a 10-minute film, right? 10-minute film. And this is our second year at uni, and then me being, I don't know how old I was, like early 20s, I was just like, fuck that, I want to make what I want. It's just like, then we ended up making near enough a feature film, you know, and like.
So how did you meet Chris? Was it at uni at the same time?
No, so because Chris is older than me, and he's.
That's what I was wondering. Like, how did you?
Chris. So basically, I was casting for Gardenia, and we needed the lead man, and then we had this guy playing, already cast, and then it just kind of through the politics of what was going on at the time, and it just didn't work out, and then I've been sent an audition, like not an audition, but like a showreel of an actor.
Yeah.
It's really bad, but this actor sent me showreel, and then in this actor's showreel, he was acting alongside Chris, and I noticed Chris, and I was like, wow, he's good. Yeah. And I literally found out who he was, and I just personally contacted him. I was like, I'm making a film, I'd love you to play this role. And he wasn't really Chris wasn't like quite interested to begin with the project. There's like a gratuitous violence.
Do you think that was just because of the story, or because you're a student?
It's both. It was like, I was a student, and then it was also the fact that a lot of the opening montage of the film was just him killing people, because he's after this object, and it keeps getting passed through different people. So he's on this kind of, he's just killing all these people trying to get it, and that's kind of the bulk of what he saw to begin with, was this intro, and it was just like. So and naturally to him it was just like, well, I'm just killing loads of people. I'm not interested in this. But then I think I got to speak to him, and then just kind of passionately tell him what I'm trying to do with it. Yeah. And then I think that's when it started changing. And then eventually, long story short, we worked together. And then it was during that film, because it was like quite a few days of filming and long days. We just really bonded, and we hit it off, and we were just completely in sync, not just as creatives but as people. And I've never let him go since then. So literally that was about nearly 10 years ago that we met, and we've been, because Chris has had a big hand in kind of, he co-wrote one of the other films, Knocked Over, and one of the films from this anthology. But he's just a collaborator in a lot of my projects now. I'll send him a script, and he'll come back with what his thoughts, and yeah.
So before we go any further into the anthologies, what are the names of the films then? Because obviously we did The Front Door, which has been doing a festival run for the last year. Yeah,
that's done quite well actually. The Front Door.
And then what are the other ones that have been done, and what is still to finish?
So the first film that we did.
Who did you work with on them?
Okay.
Everyone. So.
Yeah, it's quite a big list.
Well, just like the main characters and stuff.
Yeah.
And the DOPs as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, can't leave them out.
So the first film we did was Peter the Penguin, which was the first film in the anthology. It was a big learning experience, and that was working with Christopher Hood, who was the DOP on it. Pardon me. And then there was Ashley Gardner, who came on as a co-producer, and then my partner Joanna Caldwell, she was also kind of co-producing it. And then who else was there? There was the actors. You had Alex Capilla. You had this lovely young actress Mia Hemmerling, and then I'm trying to think, and then Chris Butler was in it as well. Chris Butler obviously also kind of had a good dab at the script. So then the next film was The Front Door, which you shot.
But the Peter the Penguin ain't officially been launched yet, has it?
No, it's finished. It's done, but it's not been.
And what was the delay on that? Because this is a good story.
The delay on it.
It was the audio recording, right?
So no, it was just.
I don't know if you want to give it away, but
what it was.
Recording the song or something.
It was that, but it's like, to be honest, it's typical film stuff where it's not that interesting, but it's like a scene just wasn't working that well, and it was a bit on the day. It was a bit chaotic filming it, and then like it just wasn't working, and then I just said I've got this other idea I want to do, and I just like months and months later reconnected with the actors and just got them to re-record some dialogue, and then we did a children's theme song from scratch, and you know, but it took it's definitely going to be interesting when it comes out, because it's a bit rough around the edges. The production's very like run and gun, and but everyone did a great job on it, and like I am looking forward to releasing it. But yeah, it's weird because I've been sitting on it for so long, and it's going out to festivals now. I'm not sure what the hit ratio is going to be like, but The Front Door we did next, and that was such a quick process, because it was like, God, we shot it in a day, and then it came out within, I think, like the same month in terms of finished and went to festivals. Then it premiered at FrightFest in London, and then after FrightFest it just kind of blew up, and loads of other festivals were like, can we have it at ours? Can we have it at this festival? And it's played in Germany, Austria. I think it played in Mexico, which is mad. So that one kind of was the smoothest, because it was just a quick process. It just went out and did well, and every time it plays, it seems to get good laughs. And as you saw,
it was good. Yeah, the screening I went to is very good. And we got a last one coming up. Is it? Like you've got the last one.
There's two more. So on this Saturday, which would be.
You didn't tell me about that one.
It's in Southend. You're not going to go.
Okay.
But what's the date today? I can't, because this might go out later. To be fair,
that's true. It's the 17th.
Right. So it'll be this Saturday, tomorrow, the 18th. The Front Door's playing South Horror on Sea Festival, and then it'll be playing Indie Links in Lincolnshire. Yeah, I'm going to go to that, so you should come. And that's it then. That's the rundown, I think. And then the third film, which is called Knock Door Run, it's another door in the title. It was shot by Dave Corley, who's another cool DOP. And then you had... who else was involved? You got the luxury of a gaffer on that one, didn't you? Yeah, Seb was on that one. And we had the spark on it. Seb had his little spark on it as well. And God, I'm trying to think of all the people. There's quite a lot of people on that one.
Yeah. But you don't need to go into too much detail. But yeah.
Chris Butler again was involved in the write. He was actually a co-writer on that one. And then, that one's done. It took a while. And then the fourth one is still being kind of worked on. I'm still kind of getting that. That's going to be shot this year. And I'm also doing another film. It's just, But that's the 4 films, basically. I can't really give the title of the 4th one yet, but yeah. So for people who are potentially watching this, it'd be good to share Front Door when we can. So you'll have to let me know, and we can tag it underneath. Because we're just talking about these things, and it'd be good for people to see them, to be fair. Yeah, that's the thing, because no one knows what I'm bloody talking about. So it's, they're going to be like, what is this? But can link to your site, mate, and then keep tabs on you, hopefully. So to be fair, mate, Front Door was a good experience. It was a long day on it. It was a long day, yeah. Was it summer? I'm sure it was summertime, wasn't it? Because we literally blacked out the whole front of your house. Yeah, it was June. And doing that obviously made it dark, but it sort of insulated the house. Because I think there was 11 of us in there, wasn't there?
Yeah, and to be fair, you know, your front room with a table in the middle isn't the largest, is it really?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Daniel Lipton as well, because
you work with Dan.
Because Dan Lipton, I met on a music video, and then ever since I've kind of kept him involved, and I keep torturing him, putting him in all these really weird predicaments. And like on the front door, he's all oiled up, and he's literally just wearing like almost like a nappy, and he's just lying on the table or like just greased up. And I think he was the one that like didn't suffer the most, because it was hot in there, but at least he had no clothes on.
And he was lying down.
Yeah.
So, but it was full of candles, pitch black, really hot, wasn't it?
It was horrible.
And we shot till about 2 a.m. was it?
No, it wasn't that late. I'm
sure it was.
It was 1.
Well, okay, sorry. I think I probably got home at 2 then. And the lead actor was actually falling asleep on the last shot.
Yeah, because the lead actor, the last shot we filmed was him in bed, and it's all shot in my house. So, so he's like lying down. And then he's supposed to have his eyes closed anyway. And we've got the crane above the bed, haven't we? And then I'm talking to him and he doesn't respond or something like that. And then he actually just fell asleep in the bed. It's like, oh, that's him. Oh man.
And your fridge door's still on the wrong way around.
It is, yeah. God.
If people don't know, obviously, he was like, my fridge door opens the wrong way around for the shot. So while we were waiting for the pizza, we flipped his door around, which took about half an hour.
Yeah.
And it's still the same. It opens the wrong way now.
Because it's just the way because it's hard to explain, but hopefully if anyone sees the film, you look down my corridor and you have to see this character rifling through the fridge, but the way the fridge door opened, these are the kind of problems that filmmakers, whoever's watching, will probably just completely understand, because it's always the weirdest problems you encounter on a film set. You're like, oh, you don't think about the fridge not opening the right way. You just don't think of that. So obviously it opened the wrong way, and so James and Dan
Hunt, shout out to Dan Hunt.
Yeah, and you both, I've got a picture on my phone of you just kind of like, just taking it off and then putting it back on, and to this day it's still on the wrong bloody way.
It's one of them jobs where you think, oh, we'll do this 5 minutes, half an hour later, you're still trying to get it off and turn it around. But yeah, man, that's cool.
But it was worth it.
And then before all these short films, you had a really successful music video, didn't you? Which you did with Chris Hood as well.
Yeah. So,
which, to be fair, mate, was very good.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, I liked it.
We should film this after, like the compliments.
It was worthy of all the awards. We call him Andrew. I win awards Rutter quite often. Don't we? It's award-winning filmmaker.
Award-winning, yeah. Hashtag. Yeah, Kon-Tiki was. That's a whole other story in itself, but just to give you the kind of lead up to it was.
And we can post this one. We can share this one. This will be good for people to watch.
Absolutely, man. So I'm a big fan of a band called Ultrasound, and they had like a big hiatus for like 10, 11 years or something like that, and they were like when they first started, it was around about the Britpop kind of time. And then they split up, and then about 10, 11 years later, they come back, and then they started recording again, and the music was amazing. And I, as a fan, just loved the music. And then one day, I tweeted them just saying, "Let me make your next music video, just a bit, just to see what happened." And then they called my bluff and was like, "Yeah, okay." And then we fast forward like a couple of months after that, and we went, because I did another music video before this Kon-Tiki one, and then we went to Hastings. Did a music video, and that was that. And then I just kept in touch. We kind of kept in touch over the years.
So are you firing over those videos that you've done before, saying, "Oh, this is what I've just completed," stuff like that?
I didn't even show him anything really. I was just a bit like
and sinking them straight away.
Yeah, I was just like, mate, let me shoot your video. And
to be fair, they made a terrible decision. You know what I mean?
But no, it was pretty amazing how it all kind of developed, because I came in as a fan. So I love the music, and it's much better to make a music video if you like the track, because you can just, I don't know, you can bring more to it, because there's a lot more passion involved. But I agree with that 100%. Absolutely, and then after the first video, we had this relationship, and then there was talks of them doing another album, and then they kind of we started talking, and they invited me down to the studio. I think it was in Bradford. where they were recording, and they showed me the demos, and they just let me pick the track. They was like, which one do you want to do the video for? Because that'll be the single. And I was just like, that one, Kon-Tiki. And then they worked with they're on like a little label called Classic Album Club Records, and then they provided the money for the Kon-Tiki, and you know, all the money went on the screen. Nothing went in anyone's pockets, because it was just like, you know it is. And so and then yeah, we made Kon-Tiki, and that was like a 5-day shoot. It was just ridiculous. It's probably the hardest shoot to this day I've ever done. I was physically broken, mentally broken by the end of it. I'd lost quite a bit of weight, actually. I wasn't eating. I was doing like 22-hour days. Because obviously, when the crew go, I'm going back home, not to sleep, but to think of the next day and problem solve the problems that have cropped up and the stuff that we need to get. A bit of complications with a producer who had kind of like dropped out just before filming and wasn't really involved. And then it was just a bit of a kind of laying the track down as the train was coming.
Yeah.
And it could have been a disaster easily, like it really could have been a disaster, but miraculously, and with the help of Chris Hood as well, who, you know, played a big part in you know, getting it made, and you know, he did put a lot of work into it. And yeah, it was just, I get a bit burnt out even thinking about it.
So going into it, obviously with the, like obviously the producer dropping out, that obviously put a lot onto your plate to pick up. So what like going into it, like what were you worried about? Like, because obviously they planned more of the stuff. Was stuff not organised? Like what became the big stress? I'm just trying to.
Yeah. So there's a few answers to that question, because again, it's the kind of multiple strand thing where there's multiple things going on at the same time. And so, you know, I won't go into too much detail about the producer, but that kind of fell apart and it was a bit of a mess. And then so me and Chris became producers ourselves, and this is like literally like a week, maybe a week before the shoot. So you know,
what have you still got to do at this point then? Get
locations, get a raft built and floating on the water, because obviously the character in the film, as you might see if you watch it, he floats on a raft in a lake and then has to fall into the lake, and we've got to be on the lake to film, so we had to organise a boat and a guy to, you know, do all that, and then we had to organise an underwater studio, and then it was just logistics of getting everyone in places to get the raft to because we had to shoot in Wales, in Bala Lake. To get the raft there, we had to hire a guy who had a trailer. It was just this crazy logistical monster, and at the same time, you know, essentially it was like a 15 grand film that we made for 3 grand. You know, it was just ridiculous. I mean, it was, people went above and beyond, and I called in a lot of favors. And it's just like, for one instance, one of the problems, like the Bala Lake filming with the guy that we hired a company. They were like a water sports company who, you know, they do all sort of like not that kind, but they do like
because you laughed before.
I know, man, I know. But they do all kind of like activities on the lake with like kids and shit, and we hired them because they had a speedboat, you know, a boat with a motor on it, to kind of just to wrangle us and stuff, and kind of, you know, help us out on the lake. And so we drive to Wales having booked this, and then we get there, and then they say, well, have you got permission for the lake itself? And we're like, what? And then me not being a producer, because some people watching this might be thinking, well, yeah, why didn't you check that? And it's like, well, I'm not a producer. And like Chris, you know, produces, I think he's produced a lot of stuff, but he was a DOP on this, you know, he was not the producer. So we just didn't, it wasn't something that occurred to us that if we're booking a company that their base is overlooking the lake, you think you get the lake with their boat, you know? As a result, the guy said, well, you need to talk to the National Trust about filming on this lake. And I was like, holy shit. And then we were there, we were ready to go, but I had to call the National Trust up, and then that wasn't going anywhere. And in the end, you know, I still thank my lucky, whatever you call it, stars, that the guy was just generous enough to go, look, just go quickly, go on the lake. Because I should also mention, we were under military airspace. So that every now and then, like a fighter jet would just go over us, and it was so low and deafening. But we had to get a drone shot. So you know, then it starts getting really complicated. you know, I won't say any more about that, but like we got everything we needed. It was really like just you know, survival mode in terms of just you had to get everything, and then we got on the lake, and then, you know, then there's other elements of that. Then when you're on the lake, you've got the sun coming in and out. Like it was one of those days where it was really inconsistent with the clouds, and the sun was breaking through. So all of a sudden, you've got the sun breaking through, and then it's inconsistent visually. So you got to wait. And then the current, because me and Chris were on one boat. You had the guy who had the motor on his, because we had no motor in our boat. And then Chris, the guy we hired had, you know, the boat with a motor, and then the AC, Paul Warsaw was wirelessly focus pulling on that boat, and then on another, Dan was on the raft that we didn't know would float until the day, which was another like moment of just sheer panic. A guy called Adam Frey, who was great on this show. He really helped us out. Okay. He did a lot of like production design and stuff.
Yeah. So has he tested the raft?
No, because.
Yeah, Dan, get on this raft, mate.
I did ask him. I said to Adam, I was like, we need this raft tested, because like it's so important that obviously if we get there it doesn't flow, we're fucked. And then he just through some, I don't know what happened, but he just said like he just didn't have time, or something happened where he couldn't test it. So it was like I've got on my phone the actual moment it goes into the lake. So we pushed the raft in, you know, first, and it's got all these like kind of empty bottles underneath it, and then Dan slowly gets on top and it stays afloat, and we're like, yeah, that'll do. And then like going back to when we were all on the lake, Dan's on this raft and it's just spinning, and then we're spinning in the boat, but then we also have a crate with a phone on it, and that's on its own thing, and that starts floating away.
Yeah.
So you've got these three elements here spinning like this in the current, and then the sun's coming in and out. And then this guy, you know, for the life of me, can't remember the guy's name, but he had like ropes kind of attached to us, so he was just kind of like spinning us like this. And then as me and Chris would like spin around like this, Dan would spin around, and then as we kind of sync up in the spinning, I'd just shout, "Action!" And then it's like film that little bit, and then we'll spin back out, you know. And poor Dan, you know, was so thrown into it because he had to cry in this sequence and reach this emotional place. And I was just shouting at him, "Dan, fucking cry!"
To be fair though, mate, like you say all that. So how much longer did you think? How long did it take compared to what you thought it was going to take?
That filming.
That sequence.
We only had a set amount of time because we booked the guy with the boat. We'd only booked him for 2 hours, but the first hour was dealing with all the natural trust. Yeah. So, and then, but luckily, you know, he's a really nice guy and understood, and he went quite, you know, I think another hour over the time that we'd booked him for, thankfully, just to get everything, you know, that we needed to get. But because, you know, after that sequence in Wales, we drove back home and did a whole other sequence in Wolverhampton. I believe it was like this car scene outside Chris's house. But, you know, it was just, well, I think back to it now, it's ridiculous, but like, we just didn't have a choice, you know.
The funny thing is though, isn't it, you say about all that stuff, and then like you see the final thing and it's just like, no one would know that, like the pain that went into that video, man. No one. I did write a blog at one point, but yeah, I don't know where that's gone, but because I think I wanted to document like what had happened, because each day was just so unbelievable in terms of, because I should mention as well, like this, it was such a small crew, like, you know, you had Chris as the DOP, and then we didn't really have we didn't have an AD, we didn't have a producer, we had a runner on like one day, we had a gaffer on one day, which was Billy Jackson, who I'm really thankful for, because, you know, he came down and did this really kind of really freezing shootout in this coppice. And you know, he's actually gone on to camera up for The Virtues, which is the TV show, which is so a bit of a shout out to Billy. Nice. That outdoor scene's really good actually.
It was 4 hour setup. But it's because we had no crew.
It looks it though, mate. To be fair.
Yeah, it would have been faster if we had a crew.
It's probably the nicest scene in the film, isn't it?
Oh yeah. To be fair, I think so. Yeah.
They're all good, but like I think that stands out.
There's definitely
something you normally sees it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like you can, you know, I know it was like logistical nightmare getting someone on a raft, but like the actual visual of it, it's like just a guy on a raft in it.
Yeah.
Whereas like that, you've got like a bed in the forest, there's light coming through. It's not something you see every day, is it?
That's true. I mean, to be fair, like I look back at it now because I've got the hindsight of like a few years distance between it. Pardon me. Having that few years distance between the having made that film and now I can look back at externally, like there's so much that I think this is like true for a lot of filmmakers where you just look back and go, oh man, I wish I'd have done that differently. And there's this because the problem is I'm a big advocate for making films with like almost like two-man crew or something, in terms of like if you have to do it and there's no one wants to help or whatever, then just get it done. But the flip side is that was a big production. And there's a scene here, we shot in Chris's house, like a dining scene, and it's so underdressed and like it needed like more people. It needed a set designer, and as a result, it does fall flat a little bit in the film. It's one of the weaker sequences in the music video, but it's just one of them that you can get so eaten up by these what didn't work in your film. And I think filmmakers really the ones that power through and are resilient are the ones that I think do well, because you have to. I think it's important to recognise your mistakes and what you've messed up in, but then you also have to not dwell on it and go, fuck it, I'm going to move on to the next film, and then we'll try better on that one, and then you maybe fuck up on that one as well, and then you got to keep going. And that's like, I think if you get hung up on something and it shoots your confidence, it's really poisonous.
You need to try and learn from it as much as you can, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
But in terms of like pressure as well, like you're talking about pressure, like we've obviously spoke quite a few times about sort of like dealing with and trying to cope with like massive workloads at times. And then maybe times when things aren't so busy. It's like there's massive swings in I don't know what it's called, like the variance between the two. Like you go from 1 minute being like potentially really like overwhelmed with work and on top of the world at the same time because you're doing something you really enjoy, and you've made something you like, and then potentially you go from that thing of like, oh, maybe work's dropped off a bit and you're watching everyone else, and it's like trying to keep that balance in your head of like, I feel like I'm doing well, and then the next minute I feel like I'm not.
Yeah, it's a real confidence. Like it really hits your confidence. I think especially when you go quiet, and a big thing is, and I spoke to quite a few different people in freelance, and a lot of people don't talk about the fact they are quiet because they don't want to come across as no one wants to hire them and they're not doing well, and because in this culture now, everyone wants to show everyone else that they're doing super well. Instagram is the best bits and the highlights, but no one really wants to talk about like the fact that you've been quiet for a couple of months or something, and money's low, and then as a result your mental health is being affected, and then you kind of go on a little bit of a downward spiral. And I think like but it's important to recognise that like it's very common. A lot of people,
I mean I've spoken to you about it before. It's like I have these like swings of like, you'll go from being a really busy period and then stuff might quieten down, and then you might see that potentially a job that you wanted to get someone else has got, or someone else you're looking on social media and you're like thinking, oh, they've done some really cool stuff. And then like it's so hard like psychologically, like trying not to feel like you're failing a lot of the time.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
like,
a constant battle for me as well.
It's like for me 100% as well.
Because there's so many. It's Twitter that I go on more than anything now, and like I follow a lot of filmmakers and ones I really admire, and I see what they're putting out, and obviously like there's so many factors involved as well. Like you see that they've put out this film that is such like high quality and it's got funding, and then you realise they're like half your age or something, and then you go like, shit, I'm double his age and I'm not there, and then you start putting these ridiculous comparisons and it doesn't help, and it doesn't help you in any way.
But you still do it though.
You still do it, yeah.
That's the bad thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a funny thing because like I'll sit there and like dwell over stuff that hasn't happened, or I feel like I should have been at this point in my career by now. And then you break out of it and you're like, what am I doing? Like I'm just beating myself up over nothing.
Yeah, it just doesn't help.
But then you can't help it. It's like a natural thing for me. Like I think I don't know whether a lot of other people feel like that as well. It's like I always feel like a bit of imposter syndrome as
oh
well,
god,
sometimes.
yeah, that's very common, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, I have that as well, because like I do a bit of work in directing, and then but I'm kind of still slowly moving into directing in terms of commercially, and I haven't done loads of work in directing commercially, but every time I do, I get that imposter syndrome, because I've done so much work in camera opping and shooting now that I don't have any problem with that. But then when I do directing work, I get a little bit of, and even on my own films, like I've got my confidence because I'm completely confident in what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to do, but there's still that element of like, well, how do other people do it? And again, I think it's healthy to look at, I think there's two sides to it. I think it's very healthy to do your research. I think it's great to see who's out there, who else is doing cool stuff, then stuff that's similar to you as well, as similar paths. I think that's really helpful, and to try and contact those people and say, you know, what route did you take, and what happened, and ask those questions. I mean, sometimes you don't get a response, but that's just part of it. And I think it's super important to email people that you admire who are in a different league to you as well, which is also important, because ultimately you want to level up. So you reach out to these people and you ask these questions. I think that's important, and like, but you know, but it's how you balance the kind of doing your research and looking at people and seeing what they're doing, and then but not getting overwhelmed with that as well, because it's easy to get overwhelmed by looking at other people and going, well, I'm not that good, am I? I'm not as good as that, you know. But I feel like some people probably don't have this problem, but I feel like there was a lot of people that do, and they just don't talk about it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think me personally, I've been affected by it, and it's shut down my creativity, and you know, I've had stints of really quite, you know, not writing and stuff, because I just feel like, oh man, you know, I can't reach that level, and but it's just important to talk about it, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
So what helps you like overcome that? Is it just something that just over time, or do you do something else?
Yeah, there's a couple of things, right? I feel like when I get in these low periods of like, it's not just creative stuff. I mean, I can have low periods of just not feeling great, you know, about just life and stuff, and you know, we're all human. And then in those periods, I just ride it out. I don't even try to be creative in those periods, because I feel like nothing's good's going to come with this. So I'm just going to ride it out. I might play video games. I'll watch loads of films. I'll go out, whatever. Like, I'll just do stuff that's not film, because my life is very much film obsessed. Like, I live and breathe cinema. But sometimes I think you have to remove yourself from it for a little bit. But like, there's also other things I do. Like, I don't know. Like, I'll watch stuff on Vimeo. I'll watch short films. Maybe I've seen before, but like stuff that inspires me. People who have independent filmmakers who have done really well, and just seeing their trajectory and seeing their growth is inspiring as well. And sometimes it's always nice to see people who come from like maybe like a working class background, but have kind of broke through and done really well just through hard work and perseverance. Because that's what I find really inspiring, because obviously the film industry is full of elite, you know, elitist,
totally agree.
Elitism, snobbery, and it's hard not to get a bit jaded. I mean, I went to when Kon-Tiki came out, and then it got nominated for like a UK MVA. I went to the ceremony, which is at the Roundhouse in London, and it's a big prestigious event, and it's just ludicrous. But the amount of talent in that room is mind-boggling. You know, you've got all the biggest production houses in London there, like Pulse Films and, you know, Riff Raff and all these other agencies and production houses. And as a result, there's a lot of people there who are they're used to working on the biggest productions that, you know, like Beyonce music videos or Jay-Z music videos, or, you know, huge productions. So when you, as someone from the black country who isn't represented by anyone, to try and mingle with these people, it was very daunting, but it's also like...
but that's, sorry to interrupt you.
No,
that's probably when that thing of like, you feel a bit like an imposter comes in. Like,
Absolutely,
I think I would be.
Yeah,
I think I'd try and be confident, and like on the exterior I'd be confident, but inside I'd be a bit like...
Crying.
Not crying, but like... Not crying, but... I'd feel a bit uneasy.
Yeah,
I think.
Oh, I did. I was shitting it, but like, it was just like, because the event itself was ludicrous. It was like Adam Buxton, who I really like. He's got a good podcast as well. Adam Buxton was hosting it, and then you had this huge dance number, and it was just. And the people that were winning these awards for projects that were just so cool. And then there was, on Vimeo, I follow a lot of, DOPs, directors, and I've been following them for years. Then all of a sudden I see them walking around. I'm like, holy shit, that's so-and-so. And to a few of them, I did just go up to them and I just thought, you know what, I'll probably make a tit of myself, but I need to say hello to this person and just kind of see what happens.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it was good. It was a good experience. And, I had a short chat and then that was that. But like there was a few people I talked to and they'd go to me like, oh, where are you from? And I'd be like, I'm from Birmingham. And they go, no, where are you from? As in like what production house are you represented by? I'm like, oh, I'm not represented. And then all of a sudden you'd see a shift in their face of like, how do I get out of this? I don't want to know. And it's like,
it's probably a lot of times that they're after something themselves, aren't they?
Absolutely. I don't take it too personally.
Like, a lot of the time people are just after meeting their own needs.
Of course, yeah. I get it.
Since
and
they know they're not going to get anything from you, it's like, just let's just get out of it.
Yeah.
But that's not the way to be, though, is it? You know what I mean? Like,
no.
Not in my opinion. Like, I'd try and have time of day for anyone, I'd like to think.
Well, for me, it's like, I get tactical networking, I understand it, but it's like, to me, I feel like just to be a human being and talk to someone, and if someone's it might be really friendly, you might have a good conversation, that's worth talking to that person, and it's like, but I at the same time, I don't take it too personally, but it was one of those experiences that kind of really opened my eyes a little bit, and because I was kind of it felt like I was peering over the fence at what life is like on that higher end film level, and I was like, oh wow. But then at the same time, it made me feel like it was even more unreachable, even though I was in the same room.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, there's so many ways you can look at it, and this is where it comes down to your mental health as well. Is like, so many things happen to people that you could coin it as a negative experience. Like, I could easily go about the UKMVAs and be like, oh man, it was such a shit experience. No one wanted to know, I didn't win anything, blah, 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 blah. But then, like, at the same time, you could coin that and go, well, you got nominated, and you're not represented. You're from the black country. You're probably the only one from the black country and from the Midlands in that fucking room. Everyone else is like London-based and London, directors and producers and all that. And I think it's just your mental, it's how you look at stuff.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's not easy because it's on days where you are feeling crap. It's hard to put a positive spin on stuff, but I feel like I actively try and see the good in what I'm doing and what I've done. I'm definitely not where I want to be, like, but that's not a bad thing. It's, you've just got to keep going. Yeah. Sound like a motivational speaker now.
So what's your ultimate goal then? Obviously you want to do features, but is there sort of like a time scale have you tried to give yourself?
I mean,
because I'm shit at setting goals. I'm really bad at it. Like, but I know a lot of people, and like through our job, we've probably filmed some good speakers in the past, like famous Olympians and stuff. And they always talk about like obviously visualizing the goal and setting yourself time scales and that. Like, have you got anything like that?
I do, and I don't. Like, I have like this list on my computer, Wunderlist, I think it's called. It's really great. It's free as well.
Oh, is it? Is it like an app?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's free, and it's got this really satisfying. You tick the box and it goes ding, and it's like, oh.
Is it like the eBay cash thing when you sell?
I don't know. I don't know if I've done. Oh, is it like a ting? Does it? I haven't seen that.
Like, yes, sold.
But no, it's like, I mean, everyone loves lists, man. You don't have to be a filmmaker to love a list. People love ticking off lists, and this one makes a little ding noise when you do it, and then it crosses it out, and it puts it down the bottom. And for me, it's not just about that, but like, I make these lists, and I've got a folder because you can create subfolders, and then I have lists within those folders. And I have a folder of like long-term lists, like one of them might be getting to Sundance. I mean, it's like, that's not the be all and end all, but it's nice just to put these kind of bigger, big world achievements that you want to get in this folder. And then in another folder, I put my day-to-day stuff, the day-to-day I wanted to achieve in one day. Then in another folder, I've got like a kind of a longer term, like I want to make this film this year and I want to do it this way with this, whatever. But they don't always work. You know, I wanted to make my collection of short films within 1 year, but that didn't happen, you know, because just circumstance. It's like people who are watching who've probably made, you know, films themselves, you'll know what it's like when you come off a film project. You're feeling absolutely exhausted. You've just been to, like, in your head you feel like you've been to war, especially if you're a director and you've got to produce it yourself and do all the legwork and all that kind of stuff, and you know, it's your baby and it's quite a big project. You just feel exhausted by the end of it, and after that you kind of don't, the last thing you want to do is jump on another film set. You have to kind of just take a break for a bit. But then, like, so as a result, I made Knocked Over on the third film, and after that was like we did this kind of all-night shoot. You'd have loved it. It was we started at I think we started at 9 p.m. and we was going to finish at like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. And I hadn't slept in the day, so I was going on a full day. And then we started at 9 the shoot, and it was cold. And we had to end up on a field, and then we was watching the sun come up. And I had to then drive home, and man, that was the hardest drive home, you know. But what I'm trying to say is, I suppose, it's like, I do set goals, I do set plans, but like, you have to allow yourself not to meet them as well, not beat yourself up too much, because I think it can
have the opposite effect.
Exactly, you can feel like a complete failure for not doing it, and it's like, you know, people shame people for doing this new year, new me, but like I don't think that's such a bad thing. I think it's good to see people trying to change things for the better and trying to like, because I've done exactly the same. Like this year, I joined the gym for the first time in 15 years. I'm just hiding it. Like, I'm wearing a girdle. Yeah. But for the first time in 15 years, I've started working out, man.
But that's supposed to be good for like well-being and stuff, and like mentally as well, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's why I'm doing it. And like, I wanted to do it last year, but I got into like a bit of a rut with it, and I just feel like, like, goals are really good to have. It's really good to write something down and to try and achieve it, because it can have, you know, when you do achieve it, it feels amazing, but it keeps you on track. You can look back and go, okay, I've hit these targets. But you know, it's hard. The film industry is so difficult to navigate. It's so hard to know where you want, like, how you're going to get to somewhere.
Exactly.
You know, you just have to try to do little steps, baby steps to make your way there. But a lot of people have got a lot of luck. You know, a lot of people who have made it, even at young ages, have just had really good, like, it's not taking away from their talent, but they've also had like just fucking great luck in terms of who they've met, who was working on the project, you know, and who saw it. But yeah.
I know we've been going for ages, so I'm going to sort of leave with this point, ask you this probably final question. So in terms of, like you said, there's loads of different ways to get into stuff. And that's sort of like, I'll just give you a bit of background on sort of my little thing as well. So like, I sort of stumbled into doing film and video stuff anyway, just by going and doing a media course, because I was into my DJing. I've got my turntable set up there, as you can see.
Yeah.
So it sort of spiraled from that. But I had no real direction, like at college. It was just like, corporate videos, you know, just do them. And then I was happy getting into that. And then, you know, you just sort of end up snowballing and then not being satisfied and then trying to progress on to the next level and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But anyway, the question is, so like, what would you say to someone who's sort of like starting out, like now, maybe just about to leave school and wants to get into film? Like, what would be your advice to get into it? Would you bother with college and uni?
I think like, right, so for me, some people don't come to film as early as I did. Like I was fortunate enough to find a love of film when before I was even making films with my mates, I was playing with teddies, and it's I shouldn't say that, but I still play with teddies now. But like I used to make films, stop motion films with my teddies when I was really young. But like, but not everyone finds film that early. But what I would say is, regardless of what your age is, because it doesn't really fucking matter how old you are. But I went to university to study film at Wolverhampton. But I wouldn't say that was essential. I had a good experience there. You know, some of the lecturers were really, really nice and helpful and supportive. But what uni did for me, it wasn't really about what I was learning in a way. It was what it allowed me to do, which was it allowed me to have a really relaxed experience of not having to worry about paying rent too much. I mean, I had grants and loans and stuff like that from, which obviously prices were lower when I went to university.
Yeah, so how much were you paying a year?
£3,000 a year.
So I paid one.
Wow, yeah. So, and that's so £9,000, isn't it? Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's like a bit of a different decision.
So that's what I mean. I feel like if you know what you want to do, if you know you want to be a filmmaker, I wouldn't bother going to university or college. I think like, but then again, it's like there's so many different factors at play. One is like if you don't know anyone and you don't have access to equipment, you might have your phone, but like college is probably good for that. If you go to college and do a media course or something, you probably get to dabble, you get to meet people, like-minded people, you get to have access to maybe some equipment that you can level up and try working with that and editing software and stuff. But like university, I'm not so sure. Like, you know, it was a lot lower for us fee wise, and but what uni allowed me to do was it gave me 3 years of just making, like, because I don't, like, as I mentioned earlier, I was in my second year, I was asked to make a 10-minute film, and we made a 50-minute, like almost near enough feature. It wasn't feature, but near enough.
Did you get marked down for that?
Yeah,
because it was so long.
I think we got like a B or something. But you know what?
But like, because it was like not within the brief. Did you get marked down?
Pretty much. And I don't think we kind of like the film was finished, but we didn't finish it in time for the ending. Like it was just ridiculous. But I loved doing that because like because we had the freedom and the time to do a ridiculously bloated 50-minute project that. You know, there's so many writing mistakes, so many production mistakes that we all made, but that's what you need to do to learn. And like, I feel like uni gave me that time, and like, so I didn't have to worry about my rent and getting a job and paying bills and stuff. I just, you know, I lived in student accommodation, but.
So it's sort of like, you know, that year you're at uni, you can
exactly.
just literally take as much time as you want, within reason.
Yeah, and then
to make something.
Exactly, and I know not everyone's got that kind of financial situation, because I wasn't loaded by any means. Like I said, I was on like loans and grants, you know, as a single parent and stuff. Not me, I was living with a single parent, my mum, and I'm not.
You haven't told me about this, mate.
Yeah,
you talk about the kid you got in the closet.
Kept the baby quiet. No, God, no, but like. So, you know, everyone's financial circumstances are different, and I feel like you have to choose what works for you. I don't think you can kind of go, you know, look at someone and go, I'll just copy what they do, but because that circumstance was different. But what I will say for people who are starting out is just make stuff, and I think, you know, it's really common advice that, you know, I think everyone says is like, is just go and make shit, because like when I was at uni, the DSLRs was only just really, I think, like on the rise. When I was at uni, I was shooting on like tape and PD-150s, I think, so PD-150s. And it was like,
Google it if you're young and
and you had to put the cassette in the fucking like deck and then watch your tape in real time and capture it to the computer, but you have to watch the whole fucking tape. Whereas now it's like DSLRs and SD cards is so accessible, like, and it's so, they are expensive, some of those cameras, but there's so many variants that you can get hold of that is, you know, and even phones.
Like for now though, like you can get like a decent, like I've got a Sony A6300, I'm sure it's like 600 quid.
Exactly.
And it's like, I mean, it's not the best camera in the world, but like, you know, if you know what you're doing with it and you practice, you can knock out some really nice stuff on it.
Absolutely, and like, to be honest, it's not about quality, is it?
Well, not necessarily.
Not when you're starting out.
But like in terms of like when me and you were at uni, like me even more so maybe, because I was probably a few years old.
Yeah, like you're an old fart, like.
Exactly. So, you know, even back then, like a half decent camera was like you know, probably getting on for $5,000.
Yeah.
Now it's like,
and they were so much bigger back then as well.
Exactly.
But like
I had good experience at college and uni as well. And like you say, it gave me access to all the equipment I needed to do it. Yeah.
But like you say, it's like because it's a different time.
Like, but now it's like I'm still paying back my loan. I'm 35. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, is it worth? Is it like, I didn't have a massive loan, but I used all my loan and I spent it all. Is it worth, you know, trying to have a part-time job, save up a bit of money, and buy some kit?
I think so. I mean, like,
you know what I mean?
you know,
it's, you know, this is
Yeah,
it's a difficult decision. I think you've got to have support of your. I think you've got to have support of your parents as well. You know, people who are behind you and give you a bit of advice. Because, like you say, like when you're young, you don't really know. It's obvious to say, like, you don't really know many people who do that sort of thing. But, like, even if it's just someone to say, look, like, you know, like, why don't you just try this for a few, like, 6 months, a year. You know, or buy you a camera. Yeah. To have a bit of support.
Yeah.
Behind you.
I guess like not everyone has that support from parents. So I guess like I think it's just
like that expectation of like, oh, some parents are like, oh, you need to go to uni.
Yeah.
You know, and you need to do this and you need to do that. And it's
I think the internet's very important. Like YouTube. I think like for me, after when I was doing Kon-Tiki, that music video, I couldn't afford a visual effects artist.
Yeah.
So. But again, because it was like I have to do this effect, because basically at the end of the video.
Actually, you know what? Funny enough, I'm sure the first time I met you.
Yeah.
I think you might have been shooting Kon-Tiki.
Really?
At Drayton Manor. I was on a shoot with you.
No, it must have been after that.
Okay. Maybe it was after that. Yeah. But I just remember being on a shoot with you, and you're like, oh, all weekend, mate, I've got to work out how to make this rocket effect. And you were like, I've got no idea how to do it.
I remember telling my friends, I was like, I was telling them about, I haven't even shot anything, and I was like, at the end of the video, he's underwater, and then he shoots out like a rocket and turns into like a missile and flies into the clouds. And I was so excited about it, but I was like, I wasn't even thinking about how I'm going to do it. Yeah. I just thought I've got to do it.
Yeah.
I think I kind of assumed I'd find a visual effects artist.
I just remember you going, I was like, so how are you going to do this, mate? And you're like, I don't know, mate. I'm just going to go on YouTube. I was like, video co-pilot.
Man, I went on YouTube and I found like missile kind of stuff, and then I literally got hold of.
Mate, it looks quite convincing, man. You did a good job on it.
It's alright.
No, it's good. It is good.
It's alright. I basically used Trap Code Particular, which is like a Magic Bullet.
I think you've told about this, yeah.
And like basically that does like the particles of like it generates smoke plumes. So like I had to learn that because you had to get an image from Google. We won't go into too much detail, but I had to get an image of smoke on Google, load that into Trap Code, put these like coordinates in, like these code numbers, and then it takes that image and it generates it. It does something to it, and it creates the smoke texture, and then and then does it like fade away? Is it like smoke sort of like? Yeah, it does a little bit, but you have to. There's so many numbers.
Lifespan or something. Yeah, you've got like a lifespan thing.
Stuff like that. So, and then I had to do the, keyframe it to the, or motion track it to the missile glowing, which was used from optical flares, and all these little things. And then on the day I got Chris to shoot plates of like, he just did a flip up like that, and then we did a wide shot of like the camera going up. And it was just like, I literally went on YouTube and then did it that way. And like this, to be fair now, there's so many like kids really like are doing amazing things, in their films, like with effects and stuff. And it's like, I just feel like that does relate to the whole, if you're starting out, I think the internet will be your friend, and like I think also look at films that you really admire and maybe try and copy in like some practice when you're practicing. Look at a director's like style, like there's so many directors I admire, but like Edgar Wright has got a really visual style that I imitated when I was at uni. Like in Gardenia, I did some camera flips like from space, and you'd flip the camera and then you'd flip it again and you do these crazy moves, just to kind of like understand what it can do, and that I then learned like this can do this, that effect can do that, and then I think when you open up you copy like a director's style. It's not to like plagiarize, but it's just this is purely for when you're first starting out. You just get to really understand the mechanisms of how a film can be put together, and I think like it's all relative. If someone watching this wants to be a sound recordist, then it's like a bit different, But I just feel like you've got to go out and take initiative. Yeah. Be creative. Think of how you can, and if some people starting out that don't have a showreel, go and shoot stuff that it doesn't have to be part of a film. Just go and shoot a sequence with your friends or something, or if actors, get them some students, compose a scene and put that together.
I think I heard Andrew Kramer from Video Co-Pilot say something like that. I think he got a Star Trek, didn't he? That was like his big breakthrough thing.
Yeah.
And I think he said something. I watched the talk. He said something like, he was like, I hadn't got a showreel, so he just said, what would I want to see on my showreel?
Exactly.
So he literally just made
Brilliant.
that. He literally just went out and made the cool things that he'd want to see on his showreel.
Because no one
Some
knows.
montage of shots. No one knows what they've come
yeah,
from.
you watch a showreel, you don't go, you look at each one and go, what film's that from? You just you just see it and take it for what it is. But like, you know, I'll probably repeat myself, but I just feel like take initiative, shoot, you know, go out and make something, and whether it's on your phone. I know everyone dreams of shooting on Arri Alexas and Red cameras and all that kind of shit, but that's so not important when you're starting out. And it's kind of not important when you get to like a higher level. It's like that is all secondary. That you know, figuring out the story you want to tell, and cameras, it's all relative to like if it suits the story, the look. It's all cameras. I mean, this is coming from I guess a director's perspective.
Yeah.
You know, DOPs is again a different story, but I can only speak from like more.
I think a lot of the time, like you say, like you know, all the cameras are so close to each other nowadays.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it's more about, like you say, creating the look and
it's the person
and
using
the
camera,
and the lighting of it. And
cameras are just tools, aren't they?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's all about the person behind it and what they bring to the image and the creative stamp on it. I think
that's it. It's just one of the. Bit of a shit analogy, but it's just one of the bricks in it for building the house.
Exactly,
I guess.
right, yeah.
You know, like.
No, I agree though.
It's just part of the whole thing, but it's not that important really. The kit.
Exactly, and I think if you're not fortunate enough to know loads of people, you know, as someone starting out, you have to just grow, network, meet people, and make friends with people. And I think that's how I've personally grown as a filmmaker, is through building relationships and just genuinely making friends with people whose company I want around me.
Yeah.
Because you really do have to surround yourself with people that you want to be surrounded by and who can lift you up, and you lift each other up, and you know, because when you're all making a film, it can be a really brutal experience. You might not enjoy it, but when you've got good people around you, it just makes it so much easier. And then it's even better as a bonus if the end result is really good. And then you know you can all benefit and lift each other up from that. You know.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming, mate. Thanks for coming. I'm new to all this YouTube stuff, so I'll try and put some links in below of Andy's work.
This is when you find out the audio is not recorded.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, do you know what?
Oh shit, there's not one, is there?
There's literally not. It was definitely working like quite recently. I'm going to put all the links in the description below, and I'm going to go back and see, and I'll have to do a cut.